Hello, Baron here. Today's video will be a little bit longer than I've been releasing recently, and it's also being released a little bit later than I actually wanted to. So not too long ago, Riot released an update on their unreleased dragon champion, Ao Shin. If you don't know what I'm talking about, let me give some context real quick. In late 2013, Riot gave what they called a super early preview of an Eastern-style dragon champion named Ao Shin. This meant a full dragon with serpent-like body, no transformations or anything, just straight-up dragon. So, what happened? Well, aside from a couple comments here and there, for the next 2 years, the champion went dark. Over time, this generated speculation like when Ao Shin would be released, what would he do, and leaving the question, where's Ao Shin? So, on February 18th, a post from Riot was made on the forums stating that their production schedules were being finalized and that they will not be releasing Ao Shin, but instead a different dragon champion with the tentative name Aurelian Soul within the first half of the year. They didn't say anything specific about Aurelian Soul, they just focused more on the challenges and lessons learned during the entire process. I didn't feel much anticipation for this champion myself. However, I did find what Riot had to say was interesting. I'm going to read what was said in the post and give my thoughts on it. Anything else is only speculation, since I don't know the internal workings of Riotgames beyond what they actually state. First, Ao Shin's kit just didn't pass muster. This is a pretty common problem we run into in the initial stage of champion creation. And while sometimes we can adjust on the fly, a usable paper kit might have 2 or 3 core abilities that make things click. Other times we need to shelve the entire concept and take a step back. Internally, we call this iceboxing a champion, until we can revisit with a fresh perspective. This is a big one because a champion without engaging abilities isn't fun to play. At least from what I read, it seemed like Riot had trouble getting past prototyping Ao Shin. I don't know what their development cycle looks like, but the first thing done in design, not just video games, is called a minimum viable product. This is your prototype. Extra Credits explains this better than I can, but in short, it's the smallest thing you make that still gives you usable data when you test it. Riot even stated about using a paper kit, which only has a couple of abilities, because why create a full kit when you're only going to scrap it? This would allow testing to figure out what is good and what doesn't work. Iceboxing explains the long delays. If it's just not working, it's best to take a break and look at it later. Second, delivering on the unique shape of a serpentine dragon's body, long and powerful, in a game where instantaneous turning is key, presents some unique technical challenges. Given enough time, we were confident we could solve the turning problems, but because Ao Shin's abilities weren't coming together, we were reluctant to commit to engineering work that might just end up scrapped. This does relate to the previous topic while having its own issues. The model of a dragon is usually large, and the game is heavily based on how it doesn't use turn rate. Just to give a quick explanation, Dota, the game League was made from, which was also made from Warcraft 3, its units didn't move in any direction immediately. Instead, they turned to that direction, then moved forward. Riot didn't implement this into League to make it friendlier to play. It feels like Ao Shin's shape would always delay the development because non-human figures distribute weight differently, so they turn differently. It's not something that would halt the production entirely. They stated specifically about the issue with the abilities. They didn't state how far the modeling was done, but similarly with the kit, why commit a character model just to have it potentially scrapped? Everything from ability animations to walk cycles, that's a lot of work to toss out. Also something to note, the artwork they did show off before doesn't mean that those ideas or designs would make it into the finalized product. Finally, and this was the big one, we committed too early to Ao Shin's premise without really developing his thematic roots. Around the time we announced Ao Shin, we were in the process of slowing down our champion pipeline to figure out how to continue delivering resonant characters that feel unique to the League universe. We learned a lot during this time, and when we examined Ao Shin with these new lessons, why was he in Runeterra? What were his motivations? We unearthed a fresh thematic that set us off running. My previous thoughts make it seem like abilities are the most important thing about character development. It goes without saying that a playable character isn't really playable without abilities. But I'd agree with Riot saying that this is the largest problem. Theme is important. It defines the character. How can you make an awesome dragon with engaging abilities and fun gameplay without having a core theme? It's really hard, because theme dictates personality, abilities, everything really. It's the difference between Annie and Brand. Yes, both are so different in character, but they are both fire mages in concept. One's a fire spirit and the other a little girl with an ass ton of firepower. If we could take a step out of League for a minute and go to Hearthstone, just look at all their classes. They carry an overall theme in their card design for each class. Take the Druid. The class has cards that takes minions off of the board, but it either draws the opponent cards, or it gives them a random minion, puts it back into their deck, or it replaces all the minions on the board with just 2/2 treants. These are perfect because Druid in any form, not just Warcraft, are all about balance of nature. They don't take something without giving back. And just one last note on this, dragons are large in mythology, usually representing strength and power. Being in Eastern style, they can also represent spirituality and wisdom. I guess what I'm saying is that this was a big undertaking from the start, and Riot knew this. They ended up finding a theme, decided that Ao Shin wasn't fitting anymore, and decided to change their direction. And this sounds like something that would happen normally during any kind of character creation. It's sad to see him go, but honestly, if he doesn't fit a theme, then it just doesn't feel right, which would make him a worse champion overall. So this is the first video I did anything League related. I'm not dogging on Riot for this. Design isn't that easy. When I saw this post, I had some comments. I wanted to look at this less from a player stance and more a design perspective. The closest things we usually see for discussion are things about game balance, which in itself is usually a little subjective sometimes, and mostly not even from Riot themselves, but the people who play the game. Honestly, it's really nice to see into their creative process, even if it's just a little bit. And just to make one thing clear, Ao Shin isn't getting reworked, he's being replaced, and the new name isn't set in stone yet. Cerulean Soul might end up being his name, but only time will tell. People can be happy that a Dragon Champion is still being created, but some will still be upset that it took this long, had no updates, or that it's not even Ao Shin anymore. Riot did apologize for hyping up the champion. Then again, did they really hype it up that much? Most of what I found was just community build hype, and it does seem like it's rather common for Riot to reuse cancel champions, concepts, and designs. Odds are, they did this with a couple champions we already know very well. They did also state that they made a mistake when they were silent for so long. This is true. That was a mistake, but it's not their first. Their first mistake, honestly, was giving a sneak preview of a champion so early in its creation. Ben Brode, lead designer of Hearthstone, talked about a similar topic with Tavern Brawl, a game mode released in mid-2015, but it was conceptualized 2 years prior before any additional content even went live. They had a ton of cool ideas for it, but most were hackable or fell apart. And so if they announced it and then canceled it, people would be like, whoa, that was awesome. Why cancel it? Why not just release it anyways? Because at the core, the majority of a player base isn't really concerned about balanced content as more fun things to play and do. So they are more likely to get upset when fun or cool ideas are just canned. On another note, a YouTuber called Satchbag made a video titled, "Can We Be Too Inspired?" In it, he brings up things about idea debt, how thinking of a project to be really epic in your mind can be a setup to failure, because it's never going to live up to the idea you had. Hype can be dangerous for this reason, on both sides of the table. So they really should have waited until they knew things were going to be set before they announced Ao Shin. Because of the complications, it doesn't feel like they would have ever actually released Ao Shin anyways. It does, however, feel like they do have things set for Cerulean Soul though. Okay, I'm gonna wrap it up here. This script is getting way too long. Thank you for making it this far. This ended up way longer than I thought it would. Sorry for getting this like at the end of the month. Things got just really hectic. You can like or dislike this if you want, but actually I want to hear what you have to say. If you agree or disagree with what I said, or if you have your own side to this whole Cerulean Soul thing, put it down in the comments. Character creation can be hard sometimes, and playable characters are a bitch. Baron out.